Okay, we're good to go, and can everybody see my screen?
No.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a Sprint 3 review. It was a 3-week sprint, as usual. We seem to have accepted lots of story points, and what's a little bit alarming is that about 60+% of those story points came in after the sprint planning, because we originally accepted about 210 into the sprint. But among those were a slew of unsized stories, which after they got sized, that was responsible for some of the bump up. But then I think also additional stories crept in throughout the sprint. So that's something we should probably try to fix in a follow-on, most likely in Falcon release. So we're able to
as many new ones.
Yes, exactly. Yes, basically what this basically means to me is we picked what we were gonna work on, regardless of what we plan to work on.
Yeah.
You can say a principle of sprint planning. Also true, but
Yeah. So clearly that's an issue. We need to address that. It's not. Unfortunately, this is not the first time we've seen it. There's a couple of contributing factors. I think we can all speculate what they are in our sprint retrospective, but clearly we need to address this, and we have some proposal to deal with this, and I can talk more about that later. Okay. So that's roughly the status of the sprint. Graphically, it looks like this in terms of the sprint velocity. Good thing is that we got actually, a lot of stories done, so that's good. It's just unfortunately percentage-wise, it's not all that impressive. And also another not good trait here is our sprint burndown or lack thereof. You can see that for the most part we had the initial spike and then we were flatlining for most of the sprint, and only as things near the end of the sprint we started to burn story points. So that could reflect both spurious event of the work, nature of the work, or also non-disciplined use of Jira and updating Jira. Again, something that we should take care of. All right, so given that, we can probably start, again, as usual, start from inside and out. So on the platform side, there were a number of new features that were added, and these were actually some of the features that were added outside of the sprint planning because a need for them reared its head. And one of them is application dependencies, which allow us to create dependency among applications so that they can be transitively loaded. And there will be a demonstration of this capability. Both Charles and I worked on this feature. And specifically, one application that took advantage of it is the OpenFlow provider, which is now essentially a meta application which composes of both the OpenFlow base as well as the host location provider and LLDP provider. Previously, these were all bundled together, but that resulted in not having enough flexibility in contexts, for example, when running with Cord. Similarly, demand came as a result of QA testing and some usage, increased usage of network configuration. Demand came in for validating network configuration so that we could catch malformed JSON or invalid JSON configurations entering the system and then resulting in errors sometimes later. And so this was also done. And again, there will be a brief demonstration of this capability later. Jonah will demonstrate that. On the community side, I'm going to let David provide an update.
Great, thanks. I was just unmuting. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I focused on 3 things for this sprint. The first being something we discussed a few weeks ago at a TST meeting about the pilot proposal for a new module ownership or maintainer program. seemed like there was good feedback both at that meeting and then online when we moved the discussion to the mailing list. So we're moving forward with that. And again, as a reminder, this is a limited trial to identify any issues that we might want to tweak before rolling it out to the community at large. And again, we're happy to hear feedback of what those tweaks might be or what tweaks we might want to consider. So please take that to the list or reach out to me directly if you have feedbacks or questions. Another issue we worked on was optimizing the documentation contribution pathway. I think the work we're doing here applies to any of the contribution pathways, but we just picked documentation as a starting point because IACA was interested in working together, and so we wanted just to see what we could do here. And then I'm going to blog and share information. So you can see there's a link there to a blog that shows how we optimized the documentation contribution pathway from the Onos site by removing a few steps, and that led to a definite bump in the number of people who are getting to the end of that process as defined by the documentation contribution content on the wiki. So there's some really interesting thoughts in there about any of the work you're doing and how to connect people who want to contribute to that work. So I would recommend taking a look, and if you have questions, let me know. And then lastly, we had talked about starting a blog content calendar, and so within this last month, the last 30 days, there have been 7 posts on the blog compared to 3 posts within the previous 6 months. And so that content calendar is still pretty informal and early on right now. I don't know if that 7 posts every month is going to be the right.
Where is the blog?
Yeah, well, I was going to say that too. So it's kind of hidden right now. It's buried. You could go to the Onos site and look under news, and it's one of the sections in the news. If you've seen the proposed design from the new Onos homepage, it's going to surface that content in the homepage. So it will be a stream of news items and blog posts and other things. So it'll be much easier to find. And I'm also cross-posting links to any blog posts on our Twitter feed, so you can find them there as well.
That's great. I have a quick question, David. What's the time frame for rolling out the new web page?
Good question. The proposed deadline is the anniversary on the 16th. We're working with the website vendor right now, and they have raised no flags about meeting that date, and so that's my expectation.
Excellent.
And I will just add one point about the blog. I welcome, if anybody's interested in blogging about what you're doing and getting people involved or letting people know about what you're doing, please reach out to me. Andrea was gracious enough to blog about what he's doing, and I helped him post that. That was actually, of all the, Andrea, you might be interested in this, of all the tweets within the last month since I started tweeting things there, that post about what Andrea is doing has been the most seen of them. So people are really interested in what's going on in the community and what we're doing, and they want to hear stories about what we're doing. And I think that makes sense. Contribution is about sharing the opportunities and the work that's going on and letting people know how they can pitch in if they're interested in that. So if people want to do that, post to the blog, please reach out to me, because I would love it not just to be me sharing my perspective, because that's going to be a fairly narrow view of everything that's going on.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Okay, so we can come back to the core now. Madan unfortunately wasn't able to join, so I'm just going to provide update on his behalf. So basically, work there continued on a dynamic clustering. Now, while that feature is not, I was hoping, and Madan was hoping there was going to be able to be demoed this sprint, but unfortunately, there's going to have to wait because even though it's very, very close, work this sprint was predominantly happening on migrating Onos to the latest copycat APIs, and also debugging and various stability and correctness issues that crept in with that. And also, as usual, we're contributing the fixes and enhancements upstream, which is definitely good practice. One other additional feature that was done, I think Aaron provided this under direction of Madan, that was to adding a fingerprint-based basically adding a fingerprint to the message so that we could validate and prevent crosstalk from non-members. We've seen that as a result of showing test environments. For example, if we had a 5-node cluster and then decided to just reinstall on a 3-node cluster, well, the previous 2 members that were now ostracized still continue to talk to the new cluster members and causing interference. So we wanted to avoid this. Also on a persistent side, the indent store and flow rules stores now are capable of persisting the information. On the northbound, I'm going to let Brian provide an update.
Okay, so there's three basic things that have happened over the last few weeks. The first is on the resource service side. We've continued the development and improvements and features on the new resource service. That's been work largely driven by Show. So this sprint, we removed the dependencies on the old resource services, implemented a sharing semantic between consumers, and introduced continuous value for things like bandwidth, which was just merged last night. There's also a minor regression there, but we've got a pretty good handle of where that is, and that'll be addressed before you. There's another thing which is new for this sprint, which is the remote service. This is sort of that classic shim layer that we've been telling people to build forever. It's an RPC-based model for communication from outside the JVM to the Onos services running inside the JPM. So we've got the basic interface. This has largely been driven by Utah. And we've begun the implementation for the gRPC-based implementation. And finally, we've got the intent domain service. The implementation for the simplified version that we've talked about has been done. I think it's still under review, but hopefully it'll be merged before the weekend's over. And then this sort of sets us up for both some demonstrations of intent domain as well as the eCord use case.
Thank you, Brian. On a southbound, is Ali there?
Yeah. So I'll let Andrea talk about the netcom stuff. Is he good? Yeah. Closer. Since I'll let Andrea talk about the netcom stuff, since he implemented and did most of the work there. So if you want to
yeah, the netcom stuff is the new implementation of the netcom protocol is now in the master, and we did some modifications of what was the last review we did, because the device now is discovered automatically by Onos, and there is a new method for RPC requests that are not standard netcom, so we can pass an XML and let the device deal with it. And if you pull the current master, it's in it, so everybody can start seeing it and using it.
Okay, cool, thank you. And another thing that was touched on earlier was we separated the host location and link providers from the OpenFlow providers. We've implemented a new provider which obtains hosts from configuration, and the reason for this is that the production deployments, such as Cord, should really not be doing any link or host discovery, but rather that information should be configured. And as far as links go, it should be validated those links actually exist. Other than that, OpenFlow, so that work was done by Charles. And the OpenFlow, there's been some OpenFlow subsystem tests done by Ray. And other than that, only small minor bugs were resolved. That's all.
Great. Thanks, Ali.
No worries.
On the UI side, Simon?
Yeah, hi. So the Topology View now provides a dialog box that can be utilized by applications that are extending the feature of the Topology View. Demonstration later. Also, just a convenience usability thing was done with the flows, ports, and groups table views, so that correspondingly you can navigate back to the device view from whence you came. And then also, we took the time to create a reference application called UIRef, which basically has source code demonstrating all of the techniques that we have for extending the UI, so it can be used as a reference. And a number of defects closed.
Great. Thank you, Simon. On the miscellaneous side, Andrea, do you want to give an update on this?
Yes, there will be a demo about this. We put JSON models on the Swagger UI, so you can see what is expected when you do a get, and you can see what is expected when you do a post. So you can have information about which JSON and which type of keys and information you should post or get through the UI or through interacting with the REST API. I will do a demo about this later.
Great. Thank you. Is John going to provide an update?
Yes. So this sprint, as far as the framework goes, we worked on two things. One was functions for parsing and comparing flow rules, both in the switch and in Onos. The way we were doing it before was kind of hacky, so this helped us a lot. And the next one is we wrote driver functions for using the OVSDB plugin to set and get the controllers of switches. And then as far as tests go, we had 4 different new tests that were still in review at the end of last sprint. So those are now committed and running nightly. We also wrote a new network config test. We discovered a couple bugs, both of them which were fixed. And then Glenn refactored how the HA tests were checking the flow rules with the new functions. And we're in the process of adding those checks and refactoring the intent functionality test to be more extensible. And then we're also working on creating SSL connections between OVS and Onos in our tests. And as far as bugs go, there were 10 that were in the sprint at the beginning. 5 of those were fixed. There were 29 new bugs filed this sprint, and 12 of those are fixed, and there's a total of 121 open bugs. And here are some high-priority bugs. Most of them haven't been tackled from the last time, but just to be aware of them.
Yeah, this is something that we'll have to address in a follow-on sprint as we button up towards the release candidate.
Yep.
For sure. Thank you, John. Is Luca there?
He's not, but he asked me to give an update. So in Amlite, they've upgraded their testbed size to Drake, and they also have a different size which they're going to use for running production traffic using SNAP and Onos. That one's also running Drake, and that's waiting for universities ready to join that so they can start running production traffic. So that's the first time I think that we're running production traffic on any of these deployments, so that's kind of a significant step. On Gia, there's a new connection being set up between London or Europe and FIU, and the reason for this is it allows the South American testbed and the Europe testbed to communicate with one another without going through Internet 2, because that deployment's on hold at the moment. And then Ireland and Australia have been deploying on Drake as well on their SNAP testbed. Ping Ping, do you want to say anything about the test?
Later on, there's a button.
Okay, so we'll cover that later on. And then on the infrastructure side, Luke has installed Slack for Slack and done some work on the stats backend. That's all.
Perfect. Thank you, John. Do we have anybody to provide an update on the young stuff?
Hi, Thomas. This one, for the young model, we're still evaluating some solutions, so maybe later we can give more details.
Yeah. This is a little different. So this is some work that we've been. So this is some work that we started doing to provide a kind of a workflow for vendors to load or build support for their own device Yang models, device-centric Yang models into Onos. So we've explored several solutions. The Yang tools in Open Daylight, which had a whole ton of code and wasn't clear what we could do with that. Some Yang independent formats as well. All this giving kind of like not very good results. We're continuing to explore what we can use. So stay tuned. Basically, we're still trying to build this out.
Okay, thank you, Ali. Is there somebody to provide an update on the Onos Framework? I know that Patrick said he wasn't going to be able to be here.
Yeah. For the OpenF, with this part, we basically achieved our goal, design goal for the layer 3. In the east-west direction, now the VM can pin each other. The VM belongs to the different subnetwork, and also we isolated the virtual machine belong to the different tenant. And also in the south-north function direction, we can visit the external internet. We tried with Google, and also we can do the hard live migration for the VM between the two different subnetworks. And also we add some improvement, and we also support the P2N VXLAN configure. Before we use P2P, use the 4-mesh, but that will build a lot of channel between the OS. So right now we use P2N. We just set up a single virtual connection with each other, and also we did some more little improvement on the code. And we already submitted the code, and still we have some small part code on the testing, and we can submit it for review. And also we hope we can do a live demo when we release in the email release meeting. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, okay. What about service function chaining?
The service chaining, our India team is working on this part. Maybe we can skip this part. I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah, we can get it.
All right. Ping Ping?
Hi. This spring we finished the integration test of one single Onos system and with the flow space firewall, and fixed one bug and add some new features. One is the end-to SNIP delete all intent, and improve the BGP open message. Right now you can both handle the open message from Bird and Quagga. And new requirement from our user in Australia, in their small network, they don't want to store all the prefix, so they use a default route. So this is a new feature for us. I'm implementing this feature. This is in progress. The last feature is from Jono. He implemented a function to make the computer node to connect point map configurable in BBG. That's all.
Thank you. On a BGPLS, this again I suspect will be the India Huawei team. We probably don't have anybody.
No, Thomas, I think we can skip it.
Okay.
I just give the update, but I'm not.
All right. Understood. All right. On IP Optical and eCore, I presume that would be you, Mark.
Yeah, so the note the title change. This used to be only IP Optical. This has extended in scope to include enterprise core, since everything needs to be core around here. So we developed a dev environment, basically a mininet environment that will help us become more agile. We worked on the big switch abstraction and remote service directory. We made a gRPC implementation of a device provider interface. We'll give a demo on that later. I fixed a bug in, well, no, sorry, I rewrote the link driver to support non-standard OpenFlow extensions. And this basically blocks the progress of the OTN support. And then we analyzed a problem or deficiency at this point in the resource manager for optical resource, for wavelengths. So we understand the problem, and I guess next sprint we'll be able to tackle that.
Okay, thank you. Now for the fault management subsystem, which is a contribution from BTI, there's a review the codes that was submitted, and the reviews for this are pending. It is unclear yet whether this feature will make it into EMU. Most likely, in my view, it'll probably have to wait till Falcon, but progress on this is happening nevertheless. All right. We also have some new content on a wiki. Do you want to describe that briefly, Andrea?
Yeah.
If somebody's or mic should be off in this room.
No, it's coming from Thomas.
Oh, Thomas.
Okay. So yeah, since the testing the part had requested the OBSDB interaction, I did a page on how to use it, and so everybody can know about it. And since the netconf implementation is merged into the master, you can all see the infrastructure and how to test it locally. Even if you don't have real devices, in the netconf page that explains it all and provides a machine with a web config that's a simulator that wraps OVSDB and talks netconf.
Okay, great. Did you want me to show some of these pages, or just wait for later?
If somebody is interested, they can go and see them.
Okay. Thank you, Andrea. All right. I presume this would be for you, Bob?
Yeah, you can reload if you want, or it's about the same thing. Basically, still thinking about the right way to do. So Onos doesn't run out of the box in many server clouds, which is a bit disappointing because it's a pain to start up. And currently the scripts depend on Upstart. So I guess my suggestions are, I need to think about this some more, but also maybe somebody can point me to the documentation and design rationale for the Onos star script so I can climb that learning curve because they confuse me. And also, I think we want to think about refactoring Onos's Upstart dependency so that it can work on current Linux distributions like Ubuntu, Debian, and Fedora, as well as maybe things like macOS 10.
Yeah, the idea is to move this to systemd.
Hello.
Okay, is that it?
We lost the last.
If you're saying anything, you were disconnected, Thomas, but maybe you muted yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, I was saying that the plan is to move us to use systemd instead of Upstart.
Yeah, that doesn't solve the core problem, but yeah, that solves the problem of running on Ubuntu, Debian, and Fedora, but it doesn't. But I still suggest we might think about refactoring that so it can be a little more flexible.
Okay.
No, that's all I have, except for the demo.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm not sure who put the security bug issue in there.
Yeah, that was me. That was just a user reported a bug where if the application throws an exception in the packet processor, it can cause the switch to get disconnected. So it's kind of a security bug because there should be no way that applications can cause that sort of as we fixed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's right. I remember that part. Okay, and also just a brief reminder that the planning for the last sprint, which will be a sprint calendar-wise will be held next Monday at 1 o'clock.
So in the Cord meeting, they sort of suggested that Cord wanted to do a 4-week sprint, but that also they wanted to be aligned with Onos. Is there is there a plan to resolve that, or is the Cord will be on 4 weeks and Onos will be on 2 weeks?
Well,
we need to figure this out. And my suggestion was.
I just said this next one's sort of interesting because we have about 2 weeks until EMU is released, and so this was sort of the EMU cleanup prep sprint, and then we'll probably, I don't know what we'll do after that. But it seems like Cord has different deadlines.
Next week is a very short week also, right?
Yes.
That's why I said calendar-wise, right? Because we will really have less than 2 full weeks to start buttoning up the features so that we can hopefully sometimes on somewhere the week after Thanksgiving we can cut an RC, first RC. And hopefully within a week after that we can qualify it and cut final bits. If not, we have another week after that to do this. But I wanted to make sure that we leave that room for QA and for addressing defects and not putting in any new features.
So if I understand you correctly, basically you're saying that sort of everything that's done in order to make it into EMU, everything has to be done, should be done a couple weeks before the ship date, at least. And so that's why you're having the 2-week sprint to say that basically, essentially new feature development for EMU is all features should be there at that point, and the next weeks are kind of packaging and final QA and release engineering. Is that sort of correct?
Exactly.
And work on stuff that goes
when we get back from Thanksgiving, like December 1st, everything should be in already, and then the rest, anything else that goes in is just fixes. Yeah. Okay. And so, as far as aligning up on the same sprint boundaries with Cord, that's something that we can address later. Most likely, Falcon will, we'll probably have to do it after holidays. Okay. So I think with that we can probably transition to the demos, and we're gonna start with Simon. So let me stop sharing.
Okay, and I'll see if I can share my application here. So hopefully you can see the little topology that I have here.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, if we were to go to the applications, bundled but not activated is a new app called UIRef. It's basically a reference application for how to inject content into the UI, and we can start this up here. And once it's started, by refreshing the browser, of course we're going to go through here, you should see now that application has added 2 more views, one showing how to create some custom content, one view showing how to create a table, again using this pattern of a selection and more detail. It also injects content into the topology view, and if we look at the toolbar here, the overlays, we've got a new overlay here. And so by activating this, we now get new buttons down here and altering the overview pane. So one thing that that I wanted to demonstrate was the dialog, the programmable dialog. So this button here has been tied to pop in a dialog.
Reconnecting.
Oh, did you lose me?
I still have you.
Okay. So the contents of the dialog are basically provided by the application.
Wait, Simon, hang on a second. They're reconnecting in OneLab.
Oh, okay.
So let us know, Bob, when you guys get back.
Lovely.
Yep. I noticed that at the end when I was just speaking, there was echo coming back, so that was probably symptomatic of some issue.
Okay, are we back? Brian, are we good? Not getting anything from them.
Yeah, let me see if you can message them. That's a bummer. Are you guys back? Brian, can you hear us?
There's no one.
Thomas, can you boot the zombie Brian from the from the chat because he's actually disconnected, or from the Hangout because he's actually disconnected.
Okay,
cool.
Zombie Brian is gone.
Well, listen, I'm glad the security works. Somewhere Larry and Sergey are laughing at you.
I don't know. Maybe we can get this to you, Bob.
Okay, well, we'll try this, I suppose. No, I guess I should unmute, or no, I should plug in the mic probably.
Yeah. Oh, we can hear you just fine, actually, right now.
Yeah, it's just whether you can hear us.
Oh. Oh. What's this? Oh, it's a speaker. Yeah. Let's see. So, can you hear me now? Or is
yes.
Yeah,
we can hear you.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me and see the screen?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Wait, I don't do this.
So, may I continue, you think?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm showing here now is that you can also add buttons to the selection dialog, detail dialog, and use those to invoke, for example, the dialog here. And as you can see, the items that are selected are also referenced in here, so there's a tie-in to the selection model as well. And OK and cancel in this particular case, but basically the dialog allows you to change the title, give content, and also put the buttons at the bottom. So that was the programmable dialog. The other thing that I wanted to show you was if we were to flip over to the devices view. I don't know if you remember that when you select one of these, you can also navigate to flows, ports, and groups. Well, now we can also navigate back to the devices view. This button here was extra, and it takes you back to the device view with the device in context. I think that was everything I needed to show you. So there you go. Sorry about the interruption.
Okay. So if I were to check who would be next, it would be the REST API docs from Andrea. So did you stop sharing, Simon? So Andrea, are you going to be able to present?
Yes. Can everybody see my screen?
Nope. Okay, sure.
So yes, we did the Swagger UI implementation with the model. If you type RS docs in your CLI, we have Onos. You will see the Onos REST API page. And let's see an example of what we did in, let's say, hosts. If you try a get, you can see the model of what you're expecting to get if you do the get rest operation. And also the model schema offers an example of what is expected. And if you actually try it out, you need some information like the MAC and the VLAN or things. You try it out, all the hosts in the cell. For now, there is no hosts. If we do a post, we can use the model schema here as an example. You can click on it, and it appears in the stream. You can try to post it, and it's created. And now if we try running the get hosts, we see a host that we have posted to the REST API. And so you can see the model of what is expected of the post operation here. And if you follow that module, you can post a device. And you can see the device that has been posted also in the Onos CLI. That's the host that we didn't have before. On how to do it, if for now what is documented to the JSON is more or less all the core operations, all the core REST APIs except configuration and intents, because those are dynamic and it depends on which applications you want to configure. So that is more it's not so easy to model the JSON that is expected or that has to be posted. So if you want, if your application wants to have this model information, we created an annotation to put on the REST method. The annotation is RS model. You can see it, and you put this annotation here, and then you put the name of the JSON file containing the model you want to appear in your REST method, and all the models have to be put in a resource folder where your REST API classes is. Resources, definitions, and under definitions you put your model. Let's say we've seen the example of hosts. This is the hosts example model for the JSON, and it changes for the get. This is the model for all the hosts, and for the put is a different model because it changes the field. So if you want to do this, you simply add the annotation, add the module here, add the module name as the parameter for the annotation, and it will be automatically injected into the API. We also did a DHCP for testing, so that could be an example of how an application that's not the Onos core has some JSON models for the REST API.
Great. Thank you, Andrea. I think next is Charles, who is going to give us a demo on the application dependencies. Things went quiet. Are you guys there?
Sorry, are we ready? Are we good?
Yeah, you were good. Now I can hear you guys. Good.
Okay. Yes, I'm trying to.
Perfect. I think we're ready to go, Charles.
Okay. Why you cannot see my screen here? Oh, you need to click.
Click what?
Yeah.
No?
No?
I don't know what I do.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. Okay, so today I'm going to demo the application
dependencies. So I'm going to start my demo with only two apps, the drivers and OpenFlows. So let's start the controller. So while the controller is still starting, I'm going to talk a little bit about how can you add such application dependencies when we try to develop the app. So so here's the example of the OpenFlow app I added recently. So in the home file of the application, you should have a properties tag here, and in the property you need to add onos.app that requires, and then in this tag you put all the required or all the dependencies application name here and separate by column and so yeah, so by adding this to your application profile and review the application, and you should have the correct dependency when you activate the application. Okay, so right now the controller is already started, and so you can see drivers and OpenFlow. So as we mentioned earlier, that so right now OpenFlow is a meta application that actually contains three independent applications, which are OpenFlow base, host provider, and LDD provider. Okay, so right now if I try to deactivate the OpenFlow application, then you should see all of the applications under OpenFlow package is deactivated, and then we try to reactivate OpenFlow. Okay, so right now we have everything, and then if we try to deactivate some dependencies of the OpenFlow, say host provider, then because right now host provider is sort of dependent by the OpenFlow. So by deactivating host provider, the OpenFlow app should be also deactivated. Okay, and all the dependencies are being deactivated too. Okay, so let's deactivate OpenFlow again. And there is one exception, is that if you explicitly activate one of the dependencies, for example, say OpenFlow base here. So right now we have everything here, but I activate OpenFlow base separately. So in this case, because we explicitly activate the OpenFlow base, so the OpenFlow base will not be deactivated when we deactivate the OpenFlow or the other dependencies of the flow, say host provider. So let's try to deactivate host provider again, and then at this moment you should see OpenFlow base is it should be still there activated. Okay, so yeah, I guess this is the end of my demo. So is there any question? No.
Thank you, Charles. This is great.
Okay.
You can see we already started to have need for not just for the OpenFlow application, but also in others. We started to see a need for dependencies among applications, and so this will help formalize that relationship. So thanks, Charles. Next, probably Jono, are you there? Would you be able to give a demo of the network configuration validation?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the problem that we realized with the network configuration system was that the network configuration has the subsystem itself has no knowledge of the schema of the configuration. So when you push configuration to the REST API, it basically just accepts whatever it is as long as it's well-formed JSON, and then pushes it into the configuration store without any verification or validation of it. And this means that you can have an application that's read its configuration right along well, but then somebody accidentally misconfigures it, like a new piece of JSON. And then suddenly the configuration in the store doesn't actually make sense according to what the application says. So there's kind of an inconsistency there. So the application, has no kind of source of config as well. And so to fix this problem, Thomas has added a verification mechanism to the config. So for those that are familiar with the config subsystem, this is the config class where every sort of config piece extends. And then here there's this valid method that implementations can override to provide their validation. And if we look down at this is the DHCP validation, it checks that the fields in the JSON are actually actually make sense according to what the schema is. And we can just quickly demonstrate this in action. So I have an Onos running on the left here. I'm looking at the DHCP configuration, and I can change the configuration as long as it's valid. So I'm going to change the IP address to yeah. I can change the so you can on screen. That I was just using the.
I don't know how to get rid of this stuff at the bottom of the screen.
You can see on the right-hand side that the IP address is updated to 53. But then if I change this to something that's not actually an IP address, and I'm going to use the network configuration command again to try and push that. What I get is this error message, which is invalid IP address. So the configuration is not actually changed, and the configuration is still on. And so this is being implemented for the DHCP application at the moment, but other applications soon can add their own application for their configuration. So that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Jono. Probably you can pass the buck now to Brian, who can give a demo of the Garrett plugin.
Sure.
Hold on a second, I'm trying to present there. Okay, you ready to go?
So one of the pieces. Sure. Can you hear us?
I can.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
So one of the pieces that we needed in place to do our new module-based or file-based module owners was a Garrett plugin to help us enforce this. And so we built the plugin. It's not that big. It's on GitHub. But I'll close this out and just kind of walk you through the configuration. So what an administrator would do is they basically can define for each project the user or group that they want, and then the paths for which this person is an owner. So in this case, user Tom would have path, bar, star, and readme. Bocon can do everything, and then registered users would have access. Like this is just one example group on our demo. Garrett would have access to any change. So if we look at a change, this is not the production Garrett. This is just a sample, but the app is actually running in production Garrett. You can see that a logged-in user here would be a module owner for this particular patch, which only contains files in the BAS part of the file system. If we went to another change, so what does that mean? It means they can +2 the code, and they can also have submit access. If this user goes and tries to change files that fall outside of their domain, they'll see you're not an owner, you can't submit, and the submit button won't appear even if the change is +2. So basically, this is complements the branch-based or project-based access that Garrett normally provides by performing just one additional validation step based on the part of the source tree that's being modified. This config file is in a special branch called refs metaconfig.
You cannot see it from the field.
We can expose it via UI, but we don't need to. Sure.
What happens if, I guess we can't do much. If somebody really shouldn't, but if they modify code in 2 separate subdirectories, and the module owner is module owner in one subdirectory, but not module owner in the other subdirectory, then a core maintainer, core developer has to come in with this. Yes.
Yeah, so basically, you've got to be a module owner for all parts, every file in the commit. And if the commit crosses module boundaries or it crosses outside, nope, they'll still get to review it. They just can't submit it.
You can submit it. Well, I guess the code reviewer no matter what. Does that mean the code reviewer is supposed to write something?
So, given this implementation, anyone who is a module owner for any part of the code base can plus do any part of it. Like, we can work on enforcement there, but basically the only enforcement that this plugin does is on submit. So on submit, we actually, as part of the Garrett, there's a hook that says compare the paths for which this person has permissions and
So maybe the student commit as part of, if there is a subpart, there's a subdirectory that's for which you're the module, you get to write on that.
Yeah. Yeah, we can work on this.
Because then you guys could plus do it, and who submitted it is the guy.
Yes. Yeah. So the basic thing to show here is that we do have the basic functionality in place. It's pretty easy to both extend the Garrett UI and also put hooks in on the server side. And so we will probably be evolving this plugin as our pilot goes on, and as we figure out what the semantics we are for certain subs. But this plugin's actually been running on the production Garrett for about 2 weeks now and hasn't caused any problems. So there may be some problems as we start to have some module owners, but basically the other thing which I thought you were going to ask about is can we lock ourselves out? And the core developers have they have star on all projects.
Yeah, but my point of module is it gives it type stuff.
And potentially cross-module boundaries, which then...
But then the fact that each module can just do any project, and it gets overlapped in kind of weird way, because now you can just do code that's not relevant. But it's okay. We can all modular are effectively
in the current.
I guess the question is, does this mechanism apply to itself, or is it in a different repository? So is this permissions file is checked into which source screen? Is it under control of itself or not?
It is technically under control of itself.
So you could, what would happen then if it's under control for itself if you removed permissions?
If you didn't have any project, it reverts to a default file, and the default file is not under version control.
Okay.
So there's a bootstrapping file that you can put into Garrett, and then once you've registered the config for a project, then
so even if you messed up the config to lock everybody out, it wouldn't lock everybody out because the default bootstrap file would still be there.
Yeah, there are ways. There's a few ways around getting locked out.
I mean, certainly you can log into the server and just mess with it. But,
well, so you can log into the server and mess with it. You can you could delete the file. You could also give yourself push permissions that would subvert the submission block. So yeah, there's a few ways around it, but the basic is there's a bootstrap config file that you can actually remove once you create this in all projects and then.
And just a reminder, as Brian pointed out, I mean that this is just the first version, and the primary objective for this is to help us facilitate the pilot program, and we may be enhancing it as a result of the experience during the pilot program. And so the pilot program, you know, we have nominations, and they've been all approved. We just need to go through and work with individual module owners now. We will have a meeting sometimes next week to set up expectations and to do final configurations of this Garrett plugin, so to make sure that the module boundaries are properly drawn up. All right. So thanks, Brian. And I think next is Bob, and afterwards we have Mark on eCode stuff. So Bob, do you want to take helm of the presentation?
I do. Okay, hold on a sec. All right, so I can no longer see whether people can see my screen or not, but hopefully people can.
No, we can't see it yet. So are you sharing screen?
I was a second ago, but let me. Oh, well, it says screen share. Let's see. Oh, do I want to do my whole? Oh, it says pick a window. Okay, interesting. Okay, well, do I want desktop or do I want window? Will that work? Desktop usually works. Okay, is that working now?
Looks like it's working. I see a big terminal window with Mininet examples.
Okay, that's great. So I just want to show you one thing. One thing actually. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So I want to show just starting up an Onos cluster in Mininet. This is starting up the control network, and I think it can talk to itself. And get a little bigger here, almost, so we can do cell. So just the cell file, and we can do Onos verify cell, and so we can talk to it. And if we look in, we can SSH SC1, and we see that actually this is a Mininet host. Just Mininet Onos 1 running a bunch of crap, but most notably running Onos. Now, unfortunately, the Onos startup isn't working right because of its dependency on Upstart, which isn't working. I can do controller just on this host, and then in my other window, once again, one VM. It's all like Ubuntu 14 VM. I can do sudo.
Okay, we lost your audio.
Oh, you lost my audio. That's weird.
Oh, there, you're back. You're back. It just got really quiet.
Okay. Let's see. No. Okay. This didn't actually work. Oh yeah. Okay. There we are. And so we see that I'm connected to my quote remote controller, which is running on the control network, and well, in this case, but it's just a reference controller. So that's an example of Mininet generating both a control network and a data network in the same VM very easily. And of course, ultimately we'll just have a single script that does this. But I just wanted to show you sort of how that's going to look. And kind of the interesting thing is that this really does look like a heavier weight container or a VM than it actually is. But it's just a Mininet host, and the init process is just bash. So that's
cool.
That's hopefully where we're going. And as you saw, I was rapidly able to start up a 3-node Onos cluster, and I could make a much bigger one, potentially just in one VM, memory permitting. That is to say, JVM memory permitting. So anyway, that's my demo.
So you're running 2 Minинets side by side.
Yeah, but you don't. I mean, it could be a single Python script that's just creating both networks. In this case, I just ran 2 Python scripts. But the thing I wanted to demonstrate is that they run side by side, and actually I can show you something a little bit interesting, I suppose, which is that I'll log out from here, and I'll show you ifconfig. I'll show you IP link, and I've got a bunch of links. Some of them are for the control network, and some of them are for the data network. But I was able to. I have to make sure that their names don't collide because they're all in the same root namespace. But there are ways of dealing with that also. I mean, we've run Mininet nested on itself. Actually, you could do that, but I won't demo it today. But we use the same scheme to test cluster addition by running Mininet self-hosted on itself. So this is hopefully where we're going to go to make it easier for developers to rapidly spin up Onos clusters as well as Mininet networks that are connected to each other. But there's still issues on tunneling traffic from Chrome on your laptop, So we'll work on that as well. But this is just to show, where we're going, and hopefully, one step at a time. VMs to LXC to Mininet, and then hopefully to happiness. Yeah.
The thing just runs itself.
Yeah. So that's it for now.
Thank you. That's great. All right. We can probably pass the baton now to Mark.
Final demo.
Oh, actually, how do I turn off screen sharing? I don't know.
Okay. So this is just a quick overview of what we've done so far with Encore. A little bit of context so people, so we're all on the same page. Basically, what we're doing is we built this kind of environment right, with 3 central offices, each running their own Onos cluster, and then a metro level cluster that is handling the rotor layer and has some interactions with the core clusters. So the reason why we do this, well, it's pretty obvious why we want to do end-to-end provisioning, so you need that extra layer. So what I did, I just started, so I have here 4 Onos instances. The first one is the one with the rotor topology. And this is the one, for example, that is running the optical application. Then we have 3 more. So each one of these here is a court instance. So it's not laid out perfectly, but this is these fine fabric with a bunch of hosts. And if you look at applications here, you'll see it mimics a core deployment with the segment routing application. And the interesting thing is we have here an RPC provided. So at this point, this top level Onos only knows about the rotor topology, but obviously it needs to understand a little bit about what's going on in that code. And essentially what we did is create a big switch abstraction. So the local core, once I enable this application here, is going to report a big switch to the metro layer. So in this particular case, there is a new node. There's no icon yet, but that's not that important. It's reporting from this core local core control IP. It's a non-lab big switch type of switch. So we can take a look at the switch, and we'll see it has a bunch of ports that correspond with the actual hosts that are present in the actual core. So I can do that for the other ones as well. And then you'll see that same thing happening. So the one thing I mentioned, we only did a device provider so far. So there's no links here in between. For next week, we'll probably do device provider so we can show a link between the actual big switch and metro topology. So one more thing that I want to show you is, so for example, if I make a change in the port topology, for example, bring a link down, that will create new edges. And so you should see that reflected. This one's okay. So this brings a link down in this kind of receipt, brought a link down, and there's essentially 2 ports now that are considered edges. And so you'll see, just refresh this. Whereas before it had 4 ports, now it has 6 ports with 2 that are disabled because we just disabled. So next up is the link provider mechanism, and then we can do in root shape to start trying out some applications to do actual extra applications.
That's great, Mark. Nice. Very cool. So I think with that, since that was the last demo, let me share my screen here. Okay. Everybody can see my screen?
No, not yet. Yes. No. Yeah,
All right. Okay. So that was the last demo, and I think with that we can probably call it done. I will quickly, very shortly, I will close the current sprint, and I will prepare the sprint for the next for the final one, for the number 4. For next week, and so that on Monday we can start doing sprint planning. So if in the meantime you have an idea of what needs to get done in order to button up the EMU release, please feel free to create stories and enter them into the newly created sprint. All right. With that, I can stop recording, and everybody have a nice weekend. Bye bye.
You too, Thomas.
Thomas.